10 action RPG dungeon crawlers, most of them with fewer followers than your local pizza shop's Instagram. Every single one of them worth your time. We dug through hundreds of overlooked games on Steam, the ones with passionate reviews, tiny communities, and combat systems that deserve way more attention than they're getting. This is the list nobody asked for, and the one you're gonna bookmark before it's over. Let's get into it. Starting us off at number 10, Mini Healer. This one's for a very specific kind of person. You know who you are. You're the healer main, the one keeping the whole raid alive while your teammates eat every mechanic on the floor. Mini Healer takes that exact experience and turns it into a full single-player game. You manage a party of AI characters through MMO-style boss fights, and your entire job is keeping them alive. The combat is all about triage, choosing who gets healed, when to pop cooldowns, and watching your party melt when you mistime a single ability. There are multiple healing styles to build around, deep itemization, and a surprising amount of character customization for an $8 game. One player with 900 hours wrote, "Sick and tired of your idiot friends constantly standing in fire? Just get rid of them and join the Mini Healer experience." At just $7.99 with an 88% rating from over 2,000 reviews, this is a game that quietly built a devoted following. There's easily 20+ hours of content here, and the build variety keeps pulling people back. If you've ever been the backbone of a raid group, this game already has your name on it. Number 9, Metal Dogs. Yes, you read that right. You play as a Shiba Inu strapped with heavy artillery, blasting through procedurally generated dungeons in a post-apocalyptic world where humanity is gone and the dogs have taken over. Ha! I couldn't make this up if I tried. The combat is a top-down twin-stick shooter with a dungeon crawling loop. You explore, grab weapons, power up your dog, and hunt down bounty targets called Wanteds. It's chaotic and it's fast. One reviewer described it as a tremendous amount of fun with just under 800 reviews and an 82% positive rating. And look, the attention to detail here is genuinely charming. Someone in the reviews specifically praised the butt wiggling alongside the tail. Peak game design, apparently. At $19.99, Metal Dogs sits in this weird and wonderful space where cute meets carnage. Only 761 reviews deep, this one flew completely under the radar. If you want something that doesn't take itself seriously but still delivers a satisfying loot grind, strap a cannon on a Shiba and go to work. At number 8, we've got The Rangers in the South. This is a 2.5D pixel art roguelike ARPG that dropped in January 2025 and barely made a ripple. Just over 760 reviews. But those who found it got hooked fast. You create characters from multiple classes, each with unique strategies and abilities, then carve through procedurally generated dungeons across different biomes. The combat leans into spell synergies. Simple on the surface, but the way abilities interact with each other gives you real build variety. One player called the animation and lightning effects stunning, which, for a pixel art game at this price, says something. And that price? $3.99. Under $4. Players are logging 8, 10, 18 hours into a game that costs less than a coffee. The developers at DPA Studios are a small indie team, and for a first release, the reception has been genuinely warm. There are some balance quirks. Bow users are apparently a bit overpowered. But honestly, being OP in a dungeon crawler is half the fun. If you want a cheap, addictive ARPG that punches above its weight, this one's an easy grab. Coming in at number 7, Dungeons of Hinterberg. This game is gorgeous. Set in a magical Austrian Alps town, you play as Luisa, a burned-out law associate who travels to Hinterberg to explore its monster-filled dungeons. The combat is a snappy hack-and-slash system built around dodging, timing your attacks, and using zone-specific special abilities that change depending on which biome you're exploring. Each area has its own flavor of combat and puzzle design, so it never feels like you're grinding the same loop. Between dungeon runs, you forge relationships with locals, and those social connections actually feed back into your abilities. It's sitting at a 94% positive rating from over 2,000 reviews. One reviewer with 41 hours in said they kept catching themselves just staring at the scenery. Gaming Bible gave it an 8 out of 10. And here's the thing, with barely 2,000 reviews, most people still haven't heard of it. At $22.99, this is a polished, feel-good dungeon crawler from a small studio called Microbird Games. If you want something that balances exploration, combat, and genuine charm without brutalizing you, Hinterberg delivers exactly that.
Number 6 is Unexplored.
This one's been out since 2017, has only 563 reviews, and somehow still flies under the radar, despite Rock Paper Shotgun calling it one of their games of the year. The dungeon generation in this game is legendary. It uses a graph grammar system to build levels that actually feel designed. Rooms connect logically, keys and locks create real exploration puzzles, and every run feels like a handcrafted dungeon that nobody actually handcrafted. The combat is real-time, dual-wielding focused, and deliberately paced. You're managing space, using items tactically, and every encounter has weight. One player with over 200 hours called it one of their all-time favorites after 25 years of playing RPGs. Another with 140 hours said, "Years later, I still think about this game a lot." At $9.99, Unexplored is one of those rare games where the people who find it become completely obsessed. The kind of game you stumble into, and suddenly it's 3 a.m. One less enthusiastic reviewer admitted they kept dying to inexplicable explosions within the first hour. So, fair warning, it will kill you, but you'll come back. Number 5. Metal Bringer. If you've ever wanted to build a fully customizable mecha from scratch and then pilot it through hordes of enemies in a roguelike dungeon run, here you go. This game gives you 2 layers of combat. You control a humanoid labor unit on the ground and a giant mech called an arms for the heavy lifting. The loop is build, fight, die, rebuild better. One player described it as Dynasty Warriors meets Lego mechs. And honestly, that tracks. The customization is the real star here. You're picking weapons, swapping parts, experimenting with builds, and the gravity gun apparently paralyzes enemies while it kills them, which is as satisfying as it sounds. Metal Bringer launched in March 2025 and has already pulled an 89% positive rating from just over 1,000 reviews. That's a strong signal for a game this new and this small. At $19.99 from developer Alpha Wing Inc., it's got a solid foundation with serious room to grow. Players are calling it addictive, the kind of game where you say one more run and suddenly 3 hours are gone. At number 4, Into the Necrovale. This is an action RPG built entirely around item synergies. You're exploring the Necrovale, a cursed dumping ground where 1,000 generations of criminals have been banished, and you're picking up items that interact with each other in increasingly wild ways. The combat is about building combinations, stacking effects, finding the right gear interactions, and watching your character evolve from scrappy survivor to unstoppable force within a single run. One reviewer with 50 hours in said, "Better than you think and a strong recommendation," which might be the most honest endorsement I've ever read. The build depth here is enormous. Green Man Gaming recommended it specifically for people who love the idea of roguelikes, and players are logging 40-50 hours chasing new synergies. Made by a solo developer at Clyde Games, sitting at an 86% positive rating with just 546 reviews, $14.99. Here's the thing though, do not sell your rare items early. Players learn the hard way. You can upgrade and combine them later. That tip alone will save you hours of regret.
Number 3, Savara. This one dropped in May 2025 and immediately caught attention for its combat. You're fighting in a festival organized for a warrior god, proving your valor against massive monsters using a tight stamina bar, a weapon swap mechanic, and a part break system. You read that right. You can break pieces off monsters and then use those pieces to craft new armor and weapons. The combat is deliberate, methodical, and deeply satisfying. You've got 3 distinct weapon types to swap between mid-fight, and the game rewards you for learning enemy patterns and timing your attacks. One player said it plainly, "The core gameplay is fun, even though it may feel repetitive." But that's the point. The repetition is the mastery loop. Each run you get better, you read the monsters faster, you optimize your combos.
With an 89% rating from 520 reviews and a price of $19.99, Savara is already building a devoted following at Doria Games. Another reviewer said the swaps and the variety of weapons make the combat genuinely exciting, and that this is the rare dungeon crawler where you're not just spamming left click until everything's dead. That alone puts it in rare company. Number 2, Dark Hunting Ground. A solo developer made this. One person, and it has a 94% positive rating from over 700 reviews. That is absurd. Dark Hunting Ground is a pixel art hack and slash focused on character building, loot farming, and a progression system that keeps revealing new layers the longer you play. The combat is fast-paced and direct. You're cutting through hordes, developing your skills freely across a deep upgrade system, and chasing the abyss-eye synergies that shape your entire build direction. One player admitted they didn't like the game for the first 2 hours, thought it was too simplistic. Then they kept playing, and realized the depth was hiding behind a deliberately clean surface. 32 hours later, they were hooked. At $12.99, this is one of the best value propositions on the entire list. Another reviewer called it remarkably deep for a one-person project with a lot of quality-of-life features you wouldn't expect. 719 reviews. That's it. For a game this good, from a developer this talented, Dark Hunting Ground deserves a much bigger audience, and it's getting there, slowly. And at number 1, Monomyth. This game is made by one person. One developer at Rat Tower built a first-person dungeon-crawling RPG with the scope and ambition of a full studio release, and it's sitting at a 92% positive rating from 542 reviews. Let that sink in. You're exploring the ancient fortress of Lysandria, a vast, interconnected world packed with secrets, quests, and environmental storytelling that rewards every ounce of curiosity you bring. The combat is first-person melee and magic, deliberate and weighty. Every swing matters, every spell choice matters. One reviewer described the atmosphere as a combination of Thief, Arx Fatalis, and a dash of Half-Life 2. The level design is genuinely exceptional. Players keep expecting to hit the end of early access wall, and it just doesn't come. There's always another passage, another hidden room, another mystery behind a locked door. And speaking of locked doors, multiple reviewers insist you put 1 point every single level into lockpicking. Apparently your life depends on it. At $15.99, currently 20% off from its usual $20, Monomyth is a throwback to the golden age of immersive dungeon crawlers, built with modern sensibilities and an almost unreasonable amount of care. One reviewer called it, and I'm quoting here, a slow, methodical dungeon crawler that will bite you before you can finish a sentence. 542 reviews. That's criminal. This is one of the most impressive solo-developed games on Steam, and it absolutely earned the #1 spot. That's the list. 10 dungeon crawlers most people have never touched, all of them worth your time. If any of these caught your ear, the links are in the description. Drop a comment with the ones you've already played, or the ones we missed. And if this video helped you find something new, a like goes a long way. See you in the next one.